Too kind. Yes. Um, Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here. Really grateful. The work you do at WeHeartSF is so invaluable. I've been saying for years that people in the crypto community need to embrace the world and help shape the world. And let technology be what it's purpose for, which is to improve human life. And so right now, you can see before your eyes, human life is in desperate need of repair, right? Um, a little background on why we're here. The last 50 years or so, especially around the 80s, things went to hyperdrive. We had a coalescence of wealth and disinvestment in mental health care, healthcare in general, and underproduction of land. And then you have after that the largest population boom in history. Who's young in here? Like none of you guys are that young looking. It's got to be some millennial here. Uh, okay, yeah, okay. Or you guys just look old. I don't know. You look like me. But the millennials are the biggest population in human history. They dwarf the baby boomers. And so all these new people came, and the landed elites did not share the land. So there's a homelessness crisis in every county in this country and every country in the world. So the infrastructure of success has not been passed on. So we're all here confronted with that in the street. They're right here, right now. You know, they disinvested in mental health care, so there's very few hospitals for people to get treatment, and there's little housing. And it used to be when you're homeless, you would go from you would have a calamity of some kind, a divorce, getting fired, a mental issue, a depression, an alcoholism, something or other, and you would lose your house, and you go to someone's couch, and they kick you out, you go to your car, and you go from your car to the street, and you sit in the street not that long, believe it or not. It gets really rough out there, so you come back up, and it's like an SRO, and then back into an apartment, back to life. But because there's no apartments available, it got clogged on the streets. And so we saw it accelerate with the urban boom, too, of the last 15 years, 10 years. So they're just stuck out there, degrading. And the new drugs they take to weather the storm are more than addictive. They create psychosis. All these meths and things, the new things. They destroy your psychology. So it's getting really bad. So what do we do? Right? On the decentralized local level, because this should be a federal response, right? But it is not. So we have to invent the response and hope that the response catches fire, right? And replicates and spreads like a benevolent germ. Um, but this is my daughter's bracelet. As I'm looking at this, it's a kid's bracelet. Yes, it's my daughter. She's 5. She made me wear it. She took mine, and I'm wearing hers. So that's what's happening here. Okay. I know it's weird. Um, so, uh, okay, church housing, right? That we're talking about that. Okay. So among the when I took office 8 years ago, I ran with the express purpose of getting at this issue because my mother was cruelly displaced and almost became homeless. And I became confronted with the realities of the housing crisis, the care crisis, the ethical crisis. And so I went in there to go attack it. And so we very quickly in our first year established a thing called small sites, which is city money dedicated to buying existing apartments and converting them to affordable, right? Because a new apartment costs $1 million to make, right? So with the small sites initiative and a host of other things, by the way, I want to say on a quick side note, now 8 years later, we've lowered homelessness in Berkeley 45%. At the same time, shootings are down 22%. So life goes up. Okay, now, so these churches, right, and these communities are now suffering because since the pandemic and since gentrification, the people are just not coming. It's too far, not into it, it's just not happening. And these used to be sources of wealth and connectivity and community and all that good stuff, right? And so now they still serve the community. These churches all are nonprofits and they feed people, they do things, but they need money. And since no one's coming and tithing every Sunday, how can they get money? At the same time, their people need housing. So we thought, okay, let's do a thing where we incentivize the conversion of this church land into housing for the church. And it sounds simple, but it's very difficult. We had to advocate for a state law change because there are state laws implicated. Lots of rules around land. That's how they keep people out of land, right? Lots of rules, right? We ended single-family zoning in Berkeley. That's a vestige of discriminatory housing, right? Big lot only, none of y'all. Big lot only here, right? So we took a church in my district, and we teamed up with the Lisk Foundation. They had a grant from the Zuckerberg family and some other people, and we put in money and there were tax credits and all these amazing things we assembled to do this. And we ended up building and refurbishing an apartment building on the church land. And the church received money, and now it is housing. So it sounds really simple. It was very difficult. It took a long time, but that spawned a movement, and now all over the state, it's happening. It's yes in my church, yes in God's backyard. Right?
Yes, in God's backyard.
Yeah, what's Yidgeby? Yeah, so Yidgeby is happening, and I'm excited about it too because they can improve upon our first model, and check on the lessons learned. We'll do that
later. Yeah, go for it. What were some things that you learned about that experience, and what would you do differently next time?
So the issue is that the church elders and the church board, they want to do affordable housing. It feels right. It is right. However, affordable housing does not fund the church. So the recipe that I would suggest going forward, which we did not do, in order to preserve the church, because the church here we're talking about will still need help in a few years because the affordable housing project only gave them pennies. And this is a massive lot. They have a lot of bills to pay and no money still. Housing, yes, but no money. So the solution would be to do some expensive market rate units in there and then affordable. So you have an income stream. So you can really monetize the properties, the church can thrive and do its mission to the community while providing some affordable housing.
So the affordable housing doesn't offer a consistent revenue stream. They're not renting monthly from the church.
It's below market, right? So it's not meant to generate money. It's meant to live on subsidy. Affordable housing is subsidized housing.
Is somebody making money out of that equation?
The nonprofits make money managing it. And that money comes from the government. A servicing fee comes from the taxpayer. Yeah. And the initial development piece, there's always fees there. Development fees, things like that. Again, paid for by the taxpayer. Yeah. Okay. So and there's a limit to this. You have to realize that less than 2% of people live in affordable housing. Right? It costs $1 million to make an affordable apartment. So the answer is scale. We need lots and lots of housing. Right? Okay. Oh, sure.
Follow-up question to that. I loved your observation. What are ways to, $1 million for housing, and I understand that building affordable housing is actually more expensive than building market rate housing. Because of the compliance issue and other things. Do you have any thoughts of how to lower that?
Yes, and that's actually the next phase of our discussion here. So getting at that is key. And so we pioneered a new mode of building. It's a prefabrication where you take these modular units and you preset these things, right? And you can really make them state of the art. And so my building is called Step Up Housing, and and we'll be ribbon cutting, opening doors in about a month. You'll hear about it. It's in Berkeley. It's on University Avenue. Thank you. It took 7 years because it's a new model. It's not affordable housing, but it's cheap. And it's not a nonprofit developer, it's a normal developer. And that developer fronts the cost, and the city rents to own over 10 years. And the units themselves are wired up for telemedical and medical apparatus. And the first floor is a service provider. And written into the constitution of the building is that every single tenant, every single resident, every single patient, wherever they're going to be, has to contribute to the body as a whole. Whatever you can do. You can plant flowers, tell poems, whatever. But you're going to contribute to this building, right? Universal earned income, right? People need responsibility. That's what makes humans work. So this building's opening up soon. It's going to be amazing. It'll be state of the art. It's meant to be, again, replicated all over the country, and it will be. It's a big deal. Step up housing. And so, yes, we broke the cost curve by more than half. Way more than half. So very excited about this. Very exciting. Because, we're not going to attack this problem using the old solutions and the old models and the old monies. And the government money is coming into some headwinds. So on the federal level, you see the inflation, right, from the abundance of dollars, right, and all that stuff. And on the local level, in municipalities, you're beginning to see the cost curve of pensions and healthcare costs of city and government workers hitting the breaking point now. Because they're required to earn so much per year, and they're not in the market. So the governments have to cover that cost, which means services are going down. You'll see a wave of bankruptcies in the next couple of years. Okay? So you got to be efficient. You got to figure it out. You need new tokenomic models. So I love tokenomics because it's like inventive money, programmable money, right? Creative markets. The DeFi thing is insane. What can happen there? Please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. You mentioned development fees. Are you also does that include like architecture and engineering fees, right?
Yeah, well, those are the service providers. Yes,
Right.
yes, yeah, that's part of it.
Well, as an architect, I can say that I've worked in solar as well, and a lot. So you coming from the city, I'd like to hear from you like what can be done similar to what was done in solar in many cities where there's an expedited permitting process. I'm sure that could bring the cost of design and development fees to like half if there was an expedited process where everything standardized. That if you submit a certain amount of drawings, then they meet the standards, then it's like an expedited process that can take like a couple of weeks instead of like 6 months, which is the norm. So that's one comment. And then the other one is I'm not sure if you're also doing like the type of like voluntary labor for the construction. Like I've had an experience with Habitats of Humanity.
Ugh.
I know, and then so that's the second one, and then the third one.
Blockbusters.
The third one is with the new products that you're developing.
That's like a compound question.
Okay, so we
What's
can
the
stop
deal
there.
here?
And I'll
What's
do the
going on
third
here?
one. I'll do the third one later. Yeah. So,
You gotta
so the
write
first
it
one is
down for me, bro.
expediting the permitting,
Yeah,
and
write
then
it
the
down.
second one is the voluntary labor.
I need flashcards for this kind of thing. Tired, bro. So the first question was about expedited process. Yeah. So in development of housing, the bureaucratic process is super costly because it's time. It takes time, right? And every month you lose, the debt you have on it is coming due, and your internal rate of return is getting messed up and much harder, right? So in solution to that, the same year we created small sites, my first year in office, we made by right affordable housing. So we did that, and it works. And that's part of our boom, we have 1,000 units in development right now in Berkeley. So what's the second question? I already forgot it. See? Oh yeah. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Volunteer labor. Yeah, because I mean this stuff is so specialized. You know, like construction defects uh, haunt anyone who ever bought a condo, and there's lots of liability, lots of harm happens, right? And Habitat for Humanity, I'll call them out by name too. I know we're being extreme, but I don't mind calling them out. I trash them whenever I can. Habitat for Humanity is a sham. What they do is leverage your goodwill, but really blow up somebody's property and help basically help flip it. They do block busting, right? So this is part of they did in my district. They did to one of my constituents. He needed help with his house. It was all messed up, and they came in to help him do the repairs. And the house was in receivership. The receivership guy brought in Habitat for Humanity. They did shoddy repairs and build the house up like $700,000 from their work. And then he's forced to sell it. Right? So that's what they do. Yeah, volunteer work is nice and cute, but it's not adequate. This is like serious stuff. This is your house where a child's going to sleep.
Ben, thank you so much for sharing with us. I went to UC Berkeley, and I
Go
know Go Bears. Berkeley is a very troubled city for a lot of reasons, and so it's good to know there's people that are like thinking about the future and trying to be innovative there. So thank you so much for your service and your work. It means a lot to me personally, and I go back all the time. Question is about I love your background because you want to work with churches and help innovation, and also you're thinking about crypto. Help us understand a little bit more if there's integrations between helping people of faith, helping government people, helping crypto people all get together, or are those parts of your life a little bit more compartmentalized right now?
Yeah, good point. And actually, they work together, and that's by design. All the things I work on, housing, healthcare too. I do a lot of healthcare. I created Berkeley's Health Innovation Zone. I wrote Berkeley's Health Equity Plan. We're leveraging new technologies in healthcare. That ties into my building, the Step Up Housing building, which is a healthcare apparatus, and it also ties into what I'm probably most known for is creating blockchain municipal bonds. So these are crypto bonds issued to the community or the world at large to do strategic funding of things, and they're programmable as well. They can be programmed to go into a certain radius, to do certain things, to buy this and that. And I took that to the state of California's blockchain working group, the governor's task force to do policy for the state on blockchain. And I helped write their report, and I put all the stuff in that report as well. So it's all the same. This is the new money, the new economy, right? This is the new economy birthing, and the old economy is all around. It's in real estate, it's in energy, oil. It's in heavy industry, automotive. But the new economy, especially as AI takes root in the next couple of years, and my friends, it is taking root. Believe me, it is happening. So the new economy will be human to human focused. And so humans can have their own currency that does its own thing that people want it to do. So that's what I'm all about, is launching that, integrating into our lives, and preparing the future for my daughter and your kids, so we don't inherit what we were disinherited from.
So your new Step Up program, did you create one of these bonds to help fund that program? And can you talk a little bit about that?
No, this one I would have, but the politics still coming. Still coming. We have a vendor now. It's another 7 years, right? 7 years. The legacy partners we work with in finance, the banks, have been trying to kill it for 7 years, but it's coming. We have a vendor, they're ready to go, and the first pilot will be very small, $2 million, right? So I think it's gonna be a fire truck. So yeah, not yet, but it will. It will.
Okay, so taking it back a little bit to Step Up, which is a very innovative concept. You have big hopes for this, and you see it scaling. How many units are in your first project, and how, can you just talk a little bit about the target demographic and what's going to be available there?
So, step up housing is supportive housing. It will has, I think, 64 apartments, little micro pads, small little units, but all nice, right? It will service. It will the service provider is called Boss, and they're a well-known um, service provider to homeless people and things like that in the East Bay. So they're going to be on the first floor running the program with the people. So it'll likely be people who are either coming out of homelessness or the elderly or both. And people that need supportive care. So that kind of general population, elderly people who were homeless. And by the way, you should all come to the ribbon cutting. It's going to be a great party. We're going to block the street off. There's going to be DJs. It's going to be like a little rave, and it's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of speeches, but you'll see a lot of happy people that day. It's a day of joy. It's in the summer too. Hopefully, my birthday. Hopefully.
Ben, I think we just kind of jumped straight into questions, and I don't know that if you were actually done with what you wanted to say.
Oh, okay. I'm so free flowing this. Oh, we're gonna talk about DAOs, right? Okay. Yeah, DAOs are interesting, right? So DAOs are the emergent corporate form, and so it's important to realize that until the 70s or until the 70s, 80s, everything was a corporation, a C corporation, with its heavy reporting requirements, paperwork, expense, etc., right? Unwieldy. And then Wyoming created the Limited Liability Corporation company, LLC. And now everything's LLC. So now Wyoming created the DAO LLC, and now there's other states in as well. So the DAO is a further iteration of the corporate form. And it's cool because, and I make these DAOs too. I make them for a living. At least I did for a while. It's been a while. So DAOs are good in that you can essentially very easily and seamlessly put a nugget of gold and have people radiate around it. And they contribute as they do. It's a flat hierarchy. So in the legacy world, and if you know this, if you've ever worked in an office building or for some jerk manager, you have to like be the right mode and be the right person and kiss the right ass, and this guy's after you over here, kind of kick you out, and it sucks, right? And they don't call on you sometimes. You're good. They don't call on you. But in a DAO, you call on yourself. So it's a self-selecting business social growth apparatus, right? And so it's really easy to do, and easy to organize, and very flexible. It can be programmed, right? It's essentially just like a smart token. Right? It's people doing things. You can program what they do, the options, and you can raise money with it. If people love it, it can make money somehow. You can issue a token. Somebody will buy it. So you can do things in capital markets. And it's cheap. Very, very cheap. Very inexpensive way to do this stuff. So it's a fun apparatus. I think we're still looking for the perfect app. By that I mean organizing interface. There's some good ones out now, but I think we still need that one. If you're a developer, which I'm sure many of you are, the chief developer in the world right here, right now, the money is going to be the app. That hit it, all there, visualizer, you can do it, because the one problem with DAOs is the drop off. It will drop off. They don't get credit for stuff. They don't get seen, or it's always typing, or the phone calls are random and just one guy hogging it all the time, and sometimes it's just unwieldy, right? Crypto's got a UX problem. You know this. We know this, right? Come on now. Right. We're working on it, though. We're working on it. Yeah, but DAOs are fantastic. They're the form of the future. They're super flexible. They can be 10 people. They can be 50,000 people. It's amazing. And they can be, this is a new model of emerging governance. And what you see, by the way, for better or for worse, you see the billionaire class starting to move on democracy. Right? This is the Westphalian nation state order. This is after World War II. the Westphalian model that every country, no matter what size it is, has equal say in its own affairs, right? In the affairs of the world. Well, that is coming undone. We're coming to a new era of feudalism where powerful individuals will carve up resources. And so, in there, when the states have been lost due to being co opted by elites, the DAO and the self generated currency is the solution. Oh, you can hear? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, quick question. That's all great stuff. Curious if you know any updates on Bill 1229 that was introduced by Matt Haney early last year that helps with setting up DAO frameworks for the state of California?
Yeah, I think it didn't make it yet.
Next time.
Yeah, but you don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need it.
This question goes back a little bit. You mentioned 7 years for the project you're working on to get it off the ground, the development project, but 45% reduction in folks who are unhoused. What else contributed to that number?
Oh wow! So I mean, gosh, I mean, we had put our sustained creative attention. So that's like shelters, navigation centers, buildings, hotels, new buildings. We built huge buildings. We paid rent for people. We did the whole gamut. Yeah.
Hey Ben, thanks so much for coming today. It's been really great hearing your perspective on kind of both sides, the social work and the tech. I'm curious what you think about our general approach here with what we're doing with the DAOs, where we've been kind of doing this work on the side, and we've been fortunate enough to bring in people from local cities and government, and there's definitely a lot of interest. But essentially, we're let's prove this out on the side and wait a little bit longer before we really start engaging with the cities. Since you've worked with the city of Berkeley, what's your sense for what that process is to really start trying to get folks on board at the city level, and what do you think an optimal timing for kind of engaging on those types of conversations might be?
So the cities are really, really slow, right? The government's super slow. It's very legacy, a lot of paperwork, a lot of fear of change, disinterested because they're overworked. So on the one hand, you want to make their lives easier, if the DAO can do that. And that means their goals, their processes, their ability to raise money for things. That's a big one. They're always having to apply for grants, things like that. And as I said, they're going to be more and more desperate in the next 24 months for new things as they lose resources. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's big budget shortfalls, and I guess when you have that, then you need to start getting creative.
Exactly. And and I was talking to this guy from Oracle AI for government systems. They're now all over the world now, hitting these governments, taking over the government processes. So it's happening.
If I loved your explanation of DAOs, super insightful. So if DAO is the next iteration of a corporation, how can you explain that, or can you expand on that? Right now, the main vehicle for a nonprofit organization, the primary one, is a 501c3. How do you see DAOs? Are they the next iteration of 501c3s? How do you see that, and how soon are they ready to really be rolled out in that area?
I mean, look, a 501c3 is just a tax designation, right? And it can be anything you want. A DAO can be a 501c3. You just have to convince the IRS that you have a charitable purpose. And so, it's a process. I've done it a few times. You got to write a lot of essays and get a website. And, you have to convince the IRS that you're legitimate. Right? But that's all it is. It's a process. And you can do unincorporated, nonprofit associations where you don't really do any paperwork except your own charter that you are a self-declared nonprofit, and that itself can be a DAO. Right? So the DAO, you can do it. You can make a DAO anything you want at any time. It can be a C corp, an LLC, it can be a nonprofit, it could be something else. There's no barriers.
Your recommendation to someone starting a 501c3 is there's no really conflict between those and a DAO, the legal basis. You can build it like a DAO and it can be legally designated as a 501c3. Is that correct?
Correct. You just have to, again, have a mission that's charitable and convince the IRS. Both what? Yes, very common, very common. A lot of times you have a captive, what's called a captive for-profit, where the for-profit is sort of owned by the nonprofit, and his job is to go into the world and, do adventures and raise money and get money, right? And then bring the money back to the nonprofit. Very common.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned in your talk,
Yeah, you're like, yeah.
yeah, everything you've said is really enlightening and great. I leaned over to him. I said, "Shit, he should run for president." But what really struck me was your mention of how like the human-centric things in the future are going to be what is important. A lot of what we do every day, at least a lot of what I do every day, is a lot around AI and digitization of stuff. So I guess in these like communities that you're building, you mentioned doing poetry and all that kind of stuff. So what are the kind of human-centric things that maybe you personally or that you want your foundation to focus on?
Well, what I'm doing, I created health impact bonds. This is another key initiative of mine. We'll be launching next year. And these health impact bonds is a program in which a private investor funds a program that takes people from the community, ordinary folks, gets them little 6 hours of licensing to become what's called community healthcare workers or direct care providers. These are people that just come to your house, check on you. You take your medicine today? How you feeling, Bob? Right? Because all the data shows that having just someone check on you is more effective than any doctor and clearly cheaper. So we're going to have these CHWs outfitted with technology, right? Health stuff, health sensor stuff, health tech stuff. And they're going to have 40 people that are the target population. And they're the ones who use the healthcare system the most. Like people are calling the ambulance every day. And you go to the emergency room every day because they're lonely, right? And that's costing us and the county combined, like $17 million over a 2-year span, right? So the bet is that the initiative that gets these people attention, and a stipend, a $500 stipend, can't forget the money, universal earned income, $500 a month, a dedicated community healthcare worker with health tech interactivity with the persons, an overarching, medical supervisor. The bet is that after 2 years of attention, they will save us $18 million. And the investor, of course, gets half of that. So the impact bond market is emerging, and it's another one, and it's a windfall. If you can capture the savings and report the savings properly, it's a windfall. Because this program is going to cost, I don't even know, $500,000, $600, but you could earn $9 million in 2 years. So Bain Capital has set up an infrastructure for impact bonds. And so it's emergent. Watch out for it. Because again, government's running out of money, but the need's growing. So we need new money that's not government to figure it out.
Yeah, just a follow up on that. So
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so there's groups like Bain Capital would be like who you go and ask, like who are running these kind of impact bond groups right now, like because for example, I think exactly like my partner works for a nonprofit in the city that does like exactly this stuff. I personally go basically to a month and help a lady who lives by the civic center,
and help her with her Gmail and stuff like that. Where I truly believe that that's a way. So it's like, where could I get more information to tell her to look at like impact bonds and how we could be supporting at least her nonprofit in the city that's supporting, like, I don't know, maybe 150, 200 people in North Beach, more or less. Like, it's just a small thing, but I'm like, if you add on that, there's like a whole other incentivization model that we're creating here. So,
And this is meant for the crypto markets eventually, right?
Yeah.
We can crowdfund this. You don't have to. In our program, I think the Saudis may invest in it, but we don't know yet. But this is meant for crowdfunding, obviously, right? We could put that in there and crowdfund it in a minute, right? So yeah, and again, it is a job creator of the new jobs, because those will be the majority of the jobs in 5 years.
So just for me to fully, the project costs the bonds cost $500 million, you said, up front. There's a cost up front, and then they save over 2 years, they save $18 million. And then the investor keeps half of that. So basically the government gives him $9 million, and then the taxpayers save $9 million. And then after that, what would happen the next 2 years? Would the government now invest this money this new way, or we'd raise bonds again?
Well, I mean, so the government has more money, does whatever governments do with money. They have more money, and the people should be on a new track now. They should be in a new course of behavior and health, ideally.
So would the government save 18 million over 2 years, and then from then on save like more, because now this service that cost 18 million now only costs a much lower level? What happens after that with that population that's served?
Yeah, so like healthier people cost less.
Yes.
So that's just what it is. So if they instead of calling the ambulance every day, they call it once every 4 months, that's a lot of savings. And that's just what it is.
Are you familiar with CityCoin?
Yes, very, very familiar.
Have you thought or done any work with trying to implement that for the city of Berkeley, potentially? Or
No.
have you floated that idea?
No.
It's different than a bond. You could use that to raise money by selling the coins.
No. They're cool. They're cool.
Scott?
Yeah, two quick questions. One is a math question. No, this would be quick. You said the city saves $18 million, and then the investors get $9 million of that. So wouldn't that only be a $9 million savings for the city, right? Okay. So the city only saves $9, and then you take the other part of that.
Yes, the only. I love your only there characterization. That's a lot of money.
Look, I don't get out of bed for less than $10 million anyway. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
What city? What city are you running?
I don't want to brag. This is not about me. Okay, it's not about me.
You should come take over Berkeley. Bring your
they've
money.
a-
Bring your money.
They've asked. I'm a South Bay guy, so
Oh yeah, a lot of money down there. Which
the,
town? Palo Alto. Which town?
we're no Morgan Hill.
What's that? What's
Morgan Hill. It's really the Oxford of the USA. So
What is it?
um,
It's like a rich suburb,
it's,
right?
You know, they care about agriculture and human beings. We don't. Again, we don't want to
Okay.
brag. It's not. We don't. It's not our thing.
Okay, thanks for your
Right.
input.
They are pretty amazing, but we
Yeah.
don't have to talk about it. So
Okay.
the other thing I was going to ask is, in all of the stuff that you're doing with the Web3 and that kind of stuff, and then the kind of the organizational stuff, like how are you putting that onto block? Like, are you putting that on the blockchain, and how are you thinking about that from an organizational standpoint? Because that piece.
We have vendors do that stuff. They bring a plan, we approve it. So please apply for things when you hear about them. When you see RFPs come out of town, come out of Berkeley, apply. If that's your thing, you know what I mean?
Okay, one last question here.
Hey, thanks for the talk.
Hey,
Two questions, I guess. One is like, uh, if we wanted to transpose this model out of like government programs and provide bounties for like nonprofits, to essentially the model I'm thinking is almost like a bounty that any nonprofit could say we're spending X amount of dollars on this program. Anyone that can provide this service for cheaper can see half the money in the savings. Is there a framework to turn this into like a bounty type program for non-government entities, or are there like different hurdles that you're running into?
yeah, I think we're getting lost in the semantics, but because that's an ordinary business, right? If you can save this building here, their electricity bill by 20%, you capture 10% savings, right? It's a standard way to approach a business or a nonprofit. So it's already out there. Yeah, but it's around for everything you do, right? If you're spending on this, we can do it for you. We can show you to do it cheaper, give us some of the savings. It's a common thing to do.
Okay, so kind of redirecting this conversation back to
We got off track.
your experience and some advice that you might be able to give to an interim housing community being built in the East Bay. From your experience, what would you like to share?
We got off track. Okay, put us back on track. Okay. So, the key thing is that there is a housing shortage. And so any sort of temporary respite is gonna confront that at the end of the respite period, right? So you have to really work hard on placement of the people in it. Like you really figure that out. And you also you need good programming, right? Common stuff, right? Common rooms and community building and healthcare and mental health and trauma, all that business, right? And job, get on your feet type stuff, right? Like what a Kerr might do, right? You're just on your phone, it's gonna get your attention. That's all. And then you don't want to fall prey to letting them get stuck there, right? So much, my people's story is one of good intentions destroying Black people. That's welfare, right? Just dependency, brokenness, terrible shit, stuff. We're streaming this, right? I'm cursing. Let's blot that out. So you want to make sure you don't create dependency. You create self-fulfillment and out of the nest. It has to be out of the nest, right? And then I saw, just so you know, what you're doing. I funded the first one of these, the Youth Spirit Artworks Tiny House Village for kids, right? Yeah. Yeah.
We are big fans. There actually some participants. Zay was one of our first Sweetheart SF community members.
And I do want to say this though. You've all noticed in the house magazines and house shows the tiny home revolution, right? They're trying to get you used to living like an animal. You get that? They're not sharing the land with you. They want you to live in a shoebox with no running water, like a serf. So I actually don't like the housing without plumbing thing. I think it is a capitulation to economic forces. And there is, if you have a small plot of land, there is a way to maximize that land and still have toilets and a sink in the person's house, right? So that's my main thing. Yeah, it's really important too, because again, you're building up someone's sense of self-worth, right? And outhouses ain't the thing.
But some people argue that having the restrooms and all the facilities inside doesn't give some people, the motivation to go outside.
Right. Well, they gotta get out. There's no free lunches here, baby. Right? You're going to get help. You're going to do this, or the next person will take your spot.
So how do you inspire that kind of in the culture?
Again, remember, I'm going to keep that to refrain, right? You're going to keep hearing about, as AI takes over all the jobs, what formula universal basic income take. You got to take the word basic out and say earned. Everybody has to earn their keep in this world. That's what it is. You have to do something. The universe demands energy. So in this program here, you're not a passive participant. If you're coming into this concentric circle, oh, it's gone. What happened over here? Who's in charge with the AV? Roy? Roy's my AV guy. He's not here. Roy, listen, these concentric circles that I saw in my memory, if I remember correctly, is like it looks like a circuit, right? A circuit responds to electricity, then outputs a thing. So they have to come in there and do a thing to get a thing. And that is the best thing you can teach anyone. And if you don't do that, they'll be back. Here, here. Plastic oceans, that's another story. But yeah. But I fished today. Thanks for the fish. It looks good. I recommend the fish dish, everybody. It's good. I recommend it.
I wanted to just follow up off something
Roy.
where Nicole had said, "How do you instill it into the culture?" And I mean, I would argue that like this mentality already. If we're talking about American culture, I would argue that mentality already exists. Like date back to like I don't know, think of like the Homestead Act. Like how do you create something on the land that you have? Like you get given the land. If you turn it into something, you had to earn it though.
You had to be white.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, there's a lot of racial stuff glossing over.
There's a reason why
that.
these homeless people are black.
Yeah, that's true. Like, but my point is that it's trying to get into the work ethic aspect of it, of like instilling like a meaningful project into somebody's like idea of existence in the world. Where I think you're onto the right point of earning it, where it's contributing to your community. And you can kind of receive like almost like a 1 + 1 = 100, where people don't realize that by giving into something, you can actually get way more than just the 1 + 1 = 2. You can actually get way more by adding into something and creating from
Some
that.
kind of algorithmic thing you're talking about here?
It's community, I guess. I don't know.
And so but this requires us to move beyond the left-right paradigm, because the false polarization that they've got all these people spun up into, frothing at the mouth, talking about left or right like pawns, because that's what you are. You're a pawn if you're polarized, right? You use half your brain when you're polarized. So don't be polarized, because each side has some ideas. So right now, what I'm describing is anathema to the elite liberal class that doles out the welfare. No, you can't make them have to work, Charles, you know? So, and that is for some reason considered a right-wing tactic. But the proof is in the pudding, because 50 years of welfare has debased an entire people. This is really interesting. It's a long talk. I like this. This is cool.
Okay.
Oh, we're all done, though. We're done. I saw the sign. We're done.
Okay.
We're done.
Thank you so much, Ben. Such a wealth of knowledge.